Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Whispers from the Beyond, True Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Zach. If you have a story you'd like to share, please email me at hauntedhtx@gmail.com. All right, let's get into it. This story comes from Adventurous Mine6542. There is a demon that lives in our station. I work as an EMT for an ambulance company. EMS has always been full of superstitions, and most of us believe in the supernatural on account of all the crazy, gruesome stuff we get to see on any given shift. Every company, every EMT, every firefighter has a story about the station that is haunted or something that happened to them that can only be explained as paranormal. For the company I work at, we have about 5 stations, each with their own stories. Only 1 or 2 truly scary stories, though. Most things like employees seeing shadows out of the corner of their eyes, getting uneasy feelings in the station, or hearing an unexplained knock, voice, or being hissed or growled at occasionally. The station I work at was no different. The station I work at is our main station, meaning that is where we keep all of our extra resupply. So it is not uncommon for various crews to be going in and out of the station at all hours of the day. It was common knowledge that the ambulance bay was creepy at night, and people report hearing voices, footsteps, or ambulance doors opening and closing out in the garage. Now, I've worked at this station for 2 years, and I've heard things, but it's always been easy to dismiss this as my partner doing something out in the bay, or another crew doing some late-night resupply. The only experience I've had there that I couldn't explain was I was distinctly growled at in the garage late one night. At the time, I quickly realized that the only person in the bay was me, and I certainly didn't growl at myself, and I quickly left. That was all I ever experienced there, and for the most part felt very comfortable at that station. Until last night. The station is small and consists of a living room with a kitchenette attached to a hallway. This hallway leads to the garage on one side, the bathroom on the other, and at the end of the hallway is a door leading to the junior's bedroom, which you can then walk through to get to the senior's bedroom. If you go into the garage, there is a staircase that leads to the attic that stretches above the entire living quarters of the station. Me, Junior, and my partner, Senior, are dead asleep in our respective bedrooms. All the doors are closed. When I am awoken to all these loud, banging noises and the walls shaking, I realize this banging isn't just banging, but actually running. Something huge, heavy, and fast is stomping and running around in the attic upstairs. It is stomping and running so fast it is quite literally shaking the walls. Whatever it was must have been huge to be making sounds this loud. Then it gets faster. It's so fast and loud, it is running across the entire length of the attic. It is moving faster than anything can move. The stomping was happening one right after another. It almost sounded like there were 10 people up there or a creature with too many legs running right above my bed. It's so fast. It's too fast. I'm sitting up in my bed now, huddled in the corner of my bedroom, absolutely horrified. I get this deep, visceral, primal feeling of dread, almost like what prey must feel like when they are being hunted. And suddenly, it's as if a thought from somewhere else is placed into my mind, and I just know with every fiber of my being that it knows that I am awake and that I know it's there. Like a sick, twisted version of that Spider-Man meme. In between the stomping and the running, I can hear this barking, whirling sound. It's hard to describe, like a grunt mixed with the sound of wind. It is making this sound as it's running. I realize that it's running so fast, I can hear the wind it's creating swooshing and whipping around it as it's grunting as it's running. I realize that it is moving so fast, I can hear the wind it is creating, swooshing and whipping around it, and it's grunting as it's running. So now I very silently get up and I walk over to the senior's bedroom door and try to open it, but it's locked. I feel as though I can't make a noise or it'll come through into the station and kill me. I'm quietly knocking on the door, crying, pleading for my partner to let me in. I'm thinking, this is so loud, there's no way she's asleep. But she is. She's out cold and I don't get a response. I decided that my partner had the right idea, and I crept over to the bedroom door, separating my bedroom from the hallway that leads to the garage and the rest of the station, and I lock the door. I silently creep back over to my corner in the bed with my blankets and begin to text her. It is 1:45, and I'm begging her to wake up over text and describing what I'm hearing. She's not answering, so I text her fiance and ask him to call her and wake her up, but he's not answering either. It is at this point I decided to text my mom. As I'm sitting there, I get this similar feeling to before, an intense dread, a stark realization of pure truth. It doesn't even feel like my own thought, more like a piece of truth was just slipped to me by the universe. This thing upstairs is not human. I'm explaining to my mom what I'm hearing. All these loud, swishing wind sounds and stomping and running. Then I hear it run down the stairs. I tell you, my heart stopped and my soul left my body. When I heard it coming downstairs, my stomach dropped into my ass and I was nauseous. I genuinely thought I was going to die. I was waiting for it to start pounding on the door, and I had never been more thankful in my life to have locked it earlier. I was waiting for screaming or the door to start shaking or something, but it never came. It ran impossibly fast and hard back up the stairs. Up the stairs, down the stairs, across the attic, down the attic, above my head in circles, down the stairs, up the stairs, down the stairs, across the attic, down the stairs. It's going all over. Too fast. So now I'm absolutely hysterical on the phone with my mom. No one ever prepared me for dealing with being hunted and taunted by a demon. My mom is trying to calm me down. She asks me, "What do you want me to do?" I didn't know. I don't know what you can do. I didn't know what to do. I just whisper, I don't know what to do. Just please don't hang up. She tells me to bang on my partner's door and wake her up, and I do. My partner wakes up and I hear rustling in her bedroom and she goes, "Yeah," in a dismissive voice, and slowly walks over to the door and opens it. I literally shoved her back in the room, whipped around faster than I ever moved in my life, closed the door and locked it. I explained to her everything I was hearing, and we went and sat on the bed. The activity is dying down now, but it is still active enough for her to hear the running upstairs too. It is now 2:45. Another crew that gets off at 3 o'clock got to our station to put their truck away and clock out to go home. Me and my partner huddled together, glued to each other's hips, and hurried outside together to meet with them out in the building parking lot. It is at this point that we realized a completely separate crew from around 2300, 11 p.m., that night had not only left our truck full of medical equipment and drugs unlocked out in the parking lot in an area known for being a not-so-great area, but also left our garage door open, giving literally anybody access to our entire station. Me and my partner are terrified and aren't willing to go back into the station at this point. The crew that gets off at 3 o'clock goes into the station to clock out, and when they come back, they see us hanging out in our truck. They joke with us for a minute over the ghost and make fun of us for sleeping in the truck for the rest of the shift. We asked them if they heard anything, to which the senior on that crew, who had been there for a long time and staunchly believes in the paranormal, says, "Yeah, it definitely sounds like there's someone walking up there, but he's harmless." Me and my partner are just like, "Harmless? That thing is not harmless." They leave and we decide to call for PD to make sure that it wasn't some crackhead that had gotten in while the garage door had been left open. PD got there and searched very thoroughly and found no one and no evidence of anyone being there. It is 4 o'clock and we notify our dispatch that the station was cleared to be safe by PD, and together we venture back inside. We elected to keep the truck in the parking lot so we wouldn't have to go back into the garage if we got a call or needed to make a quick escape from the demon. And together we huddled in the living room with all the lights on until we got off at 7. I heard a few minor bumps and bangs, but nothing crazy. Things that could be dismissed as house noises and whatnot. I barely slept, and I'm not looking forward to go back there later this week. Little update. It's nowhere as crazy as what happened the last time I was here, but there was some activity during my shift today that I figured you all would like to hear. Most of the shift was perfectly fine. We were busy and out of the station most of the day and a couple of times throughout the night. While we were in the station, though, there was some tension. The air was thick with our own anxiety, and I'm sure that this is what caused what I'm about to tell you. And for some context, out in the bay, there is a cage. It is literally just a large metal cage that runs along the back of the garage, and it is where we keep all of our resupply. The door to the cage is supposed to always be locked. This is to prevent crews from going in and messing up the company inventory. The only people with keys to that cage are the supervisors, who don't come in until around 7. I was lying in bed. I was half awake, half asleep, just kind of staring up at the ceiling, when I heard what sounded like the cage door being intensely rattled by something. It didn't sound like someone was trying to open the door. It sounded like someone grabbed a hold of the door and just started violently shaking it. This went on for about a minute. I went to my partner's bedroom to see if she heard it and found out she slept right through it. We sat there for about 30 minutes listening to it, and nothing. It is 5:50, and I can hear distinct footsteps up in the attic. Nothing crazy like the insane marathon running from the other day, but quiet footsteps up there. My partner says she can't hear them, so I just go back into my room. It is 6:30, and I can still hear an occasional footstep up there. And to be clear, no one goes up there because it's creepy and there's nothing there. It's just some boxes in an extremely, extremely dark attic space. Because I was only hearing some footsteps, I decided to go out into the garage and investigate. When I get to the garage, the footsteps stop. There was no one in the garage. When I went over to the cage to try to recreate the sound I heard, I found that the door was open. I'm not totally convinced that it wasn't just a person opening the cage door a bit aggressively. The only problem with this is I have no idea who it would have been because, like I said, there are only a few people who have keys to the cage, and none of them are here, and they don't get here for another few hours. I went back inside, and I could again hear the footsteps upstairs, and now what sounded like in the garage. I tried to record the footsteps, but they were too faint to pick up on the video. I also wanted to point out that the crew we met outside the other day that was making fun of us for hanging out in the truck had made comments about how he likes to do the resupply and to slam the cage door. Though, I guess today he just wanted to rattle the door. I'm not totally convinced that what happened today was a ghost and not a person, but I'm also not totally convinced that it was a person and not a ghost. It is now 6:50. I get off shift in 10 minutes. I won't be back here for another 10 days, and I'd be lying if I said I was sad about that. This story comes from RossRame, on the night shift. So, I used to work as a security officer. I was asked to work a Saturday night shift at an old warehouse in Dudley. I turned up at 5 p.m. where the building was a huge brick warehouse with some makeshift offices at the front. I walked in, took the keys from the day officer, and locked the doors behind him. Everything seemed normal for a while. It was a bit creepy as the building was so old, but I was used to that. Around 1 a.m., I got a call from the warehouse manager. One of his night drivers had forgotten his paperwork and asked me to go into the office, right at the back of the warehouse, and collect it for him so he could pick it up. I said fine and headed to the office. The warehouse was pitch black. I had a small torch that only slightly lit my way. I walked through until I got to the office door, which was a huge metal sliding door. It made a screeching noise as I pulled it open. As I walked in front of me was the office fax machine, which was blinking and the paperwork was printed out. I grabbed the paperwork, but as I turned around, I looked to the other end of the office and saw what I can only describe as a dark figure, hunched over and shivering. I could hear what sounded like breathing, but like if you were freezing cold. I stood there for about 30 seconds, motionless, staring at this figure. I turned back slowly and closed the door behind me, rushing back to the front office where I locked the door and waited for the driver. An hour later, the driver collected his paperwork, and for the rest of the night, I had convinced myself it was just the dark playing tricks with me, but didn't stop me from unlocking the office door or checking the cameras every few minutes. 5 a.m. turned up and I got a knock on the door from the day officer. I handed him the keys and expected him to come in, but he locked the door from the outside. I asked him if he was going in. He said he doesn't go inside when there's no one else in, but sits in his car in the car park and waits. I said that's a bit strange. He looked at me and asked if I went anywhere other than the security office. I told him I went to the back office to get some paperwork for a driver, not telling him about the other part. I'll never forget the look he gave me or what he said then. He looked me in the eyes and said, "Well, then you know why I don't go in there alone then." It gave me chills, but I shrugged it off and just said, "Okay then," and left for home. Safe to say, on the way home, I called my office and requested not to go back there. This is a 100% true story. Hope you enjoyed the read. This story also comes from RossRame, the Blue Boy. So, since my first post on the night shift got so much attention, there was a comment asking about other encounters. This one is not so creepy, but definitely worth telling. Hope you enjoy. I was fairly young, probably about 12 years old. Me and my family were up in Scotland visiting family. My uncle, who lived in Berwick-upon-Tweed, was very much a skeptic of the stories of the castle and claimed he slept there overnight. We got to the doors, and my parents paid for the tickets for the tour. On the way in, there were signs saying no flash photography, which I noticed. The tour was amazing. So much history, especially in the dungeons, where they had on display all the instruments of torture that were used in the castle, dating all the way back to the 1200s. At one point in the tour, however, we were walking past one of the rooms called the Pink Room, which was roped off, where I saw a blue flash of light inside. I looked at my mother and said to her that I thought people had gotten into the room and were taking photos and that it was naughty as it wasn't allowed. My mother agreed and we continued the tour. On our way out of the castle, my little sister begged for a book about the castle and its history. My parents gave in and bought her the book. On the way back home, my sister mentioned that there was a section in the book listing all of the known ghosts of the castle, one of which being known as the Blue Boy, which is commonly seen as a blue flash or halo. The owners of the house believe that the Blue Boy is linked to a child's skeleton which was found hidden behind a wall in one of the rooms of the house during renovation. The very same room I saw the flash. My mother looked at me and said, "I think that's what you saw, son." Thank you for listening to this episode of Whispers from the Beyond, True Ghost Stories. If you have a story you'd like to share, please email me at hauntedhtx@gmail.com. I want to thank Adventurous Mine and RossRame for letting me share their stories. Come connect with me on Instagram. The link is in the description. Finally, please leave a 5-star rating and a positive review so more people can find the podcast. That's all for now. Bye, y'all.